fine.
Oh, yeah, misery loves company. I love it.
All right. I'll give Mayor Buckets a second.
I will fix that. I've got the thing to go through the whole personnel thing.
Stu,
Is it ready?
Good, good.
All right, going back into session. We are on tab 20, I believe, paths and bicycle trail fund.
So I'm going to apologize now because you're stuck with me for the next 4 budgets. So, all right, footpaths and bicycle trails. So the working capital carryover for this fund for the year is 237,431, which is up 21,563. Interest income is projected at 5,000, which is up 2,000 from previous year. No transfers this year. And then intergovernmental revenue, this fund receives 1% of our state gas tax, which is estimated at $6,500 for the year, giving a current year resource of 11,500 for a total of 248,931. Budget expenditures for the year, we just budget 3,000 in this, which we never tap into to date for footpath improvements, trails, whatever, in case something comes along. Primarily, we've been using this fund for the sidewalk repair program. I think moving forward as interest and projects get done, we may look at restructuring this. Larry and I kind of talked about it earlier today, figuring out another way to do a program to help people repair the sidewalks in front of their houses. The other thing that we could look at using this money for is funding the pathway through the Grabhorn property. Should we develop the park, this would be eligible to be used to help that project as well. So we'll be looking at different options for this money moving forward. Contingency for the fund this year is at 205,931, and that is about it. Any questions?
So on our maintenance, I know you're saying we don't do much there, but as we expand and cover elements, how are you planning for aggregate costs associated? Because I know it's not much, but every mile of more bike trail we have does have some kind of associated maintenance expenditure.
Yeah, so how do I adjust for the?
Are you just planning for it? Is it on a project basis?
Yeah, we know every year what our gravel costs are. And I think I mentioned earlier, we're doing the commerce cleanup down there right now. And so we may look at using some aggregate from this fund to build those trails, footpaths in there. We're gonna wait and just kind of see how the year goes. We'll see how soft the property is. Just kind of give it a good evaluation, talk with council about what we want to do, make sure everybody's on the same page. Does that kind of answer your question? I mean,
It
yeah,
does.
we track the material costs. I know about what this would buy us per yard rocks, so.
Perfect.
Is Commerce open for people to walk around as long as it's water, you know?
Publicly owned property. I mean, there's nothing to say that you couldn't. There's just no amenities and path right now. But we currently have a tractor out there mowing on it.
Property line fairly defined so people know, don't go here.
We're working on that. We're surveying it as we go. It will be defined by natural boundaries. There are some fences out there between us and neighboring properties. The water obviously will define where it is. There's some wetland vegetation that will help dictate. And that's why the paths will be so instrumental, is that'll guide people where you want them to go and where you don't want them to go.
And can this be used for a bridge if needed? I mean, that qualifies footpaths over the creek.
Any other follow-up questions, concerns, comments? Moving on, tab 21.
Right, stormwater drainage fund. This has been an active fund over the last couple of years. We completed, I'm off topic here. I'm just going to talk through it. So we completed the stormwater master plan last year, which dictated this fund's future. There was a rate and cost analysis done. We determined what the rates should be, which is around $16 per service. And so what that allows us to do is do some staffing increases for the year and actually get this fund fully invested. Previously, it wasn't paying for all of its fair share of equipment costs and personnel costs, and now it is. So this is the true first functioning year of this fund, which to us is exciting now that it's kind of carrying its own weight, if you will. So running through the numbers, the working capital carryover for the year is 97,635, which is up 652,486 from the previous year. And that is because of the rate increase that we all saw this past year. Interest income is projected at 35,000. Charges for services is 986,568, which is 602,000 of that 652. And then current year resources total will be 1,021,568, giving a combined total resources of 2,619,000 and 203,000, which is 1.2 million higher than last year. Personnel services for the year are 398,489, which is up to 48,920. Once again, that's because we're bringing on staffing now that wasn't funded out of this fund before. There is a full new hire plus some percentage changes within Public Works for this. Materials and services are projected at 239,215, which is only $2,470 above. We kind of know what the maintenance costs are for right now. As that staffing level goes up though, those costs will go up in the next year. So you'll see that change as we start to tackle projects and more maintenance. Capital outlay for the year is at 207,000, which is down 12,000 from the previous year. This year for this fund is going to be getting UICs up to date. DEQ has mandated us to do several retrofits for pretreatment on a lot of our stormwater facilities. The stormwater department is going to be working on that project a lot this year. After that, you're going to see there's a pretty big contingency. We know there's big capital projects on the horizon, but we're not going to tackle them this year. We're just going to get our compliance with DEQ caught up. And then we'll tackle some bigger projects because we haven't begun the engineering for those things yet. And so that'll be the next step. That's really about it. Things that the Stormwater Fund does is it operates the street sweeper. It's 100% funded out of stormwater. We clean all the catch basins and UICs, system upgrades, maintenance of all the stormwater swales. I'm sure you've all seen those around the different subdivisions. We maintain most, but not all of those. Some of the HOAs are responsible for a few of them. And then, like I said, we'll be working on some capital improvements, UIC retrofit. And as I mentioned earlier, there is some money coming from here to help with the Scappoose Bay maintenance along the creeks. Got it?
What was the $145,000 inspection fee? It's just weird that we had 00000 on the revenue side. 60, page 92.
Where are you down on the bottom?
Yeah, 260,000,260. Underestimated for 23-24.
Oh yeah, that's, yeah. Those are just revenue projections that were this year of what we brought in. But next year, those are gonna switch over to the planning. So that's why you didn't see anything.
So it was just in the estimate as a, okay.
Yeah, so we didn't, if you look at the budget, we didn't have it budgeted
Yeah.
as a revenue, but we did receive it because projects went through the planning process, the engineering process. But it's a zero and will be zero moving forward because of the change.
Counselor Santiago?
Yes, thank you. So in a recent city meeting, not city, I'm sorry, LOC meeting with other Columbia County cities that were participating in this meeting, the topic came up of personnel in the water, wastewater departments and how some of the cities were having a hard time recruiting personnel for those departments. And they kind of said, you know, and Joe, Mayor Backus was there, and we're like, oh, a lot of us are, or a lot of our staff have been there for many, many years and hate for them all to retire or leave at the same time. So somewhere along as you're going along this this budget, if we can just keep in mind where we would either work on start funding a program or looking to bring in something to make sure we transition very well when you guys decide to leave or retire or so forth. I just want us to keep that in mind.
So we will actually touch on that here in a little bit when we get to the water and wastewater discussions. We have a strategy in place to combat that. While it does impact everybody, the certifications that these folks have to have does take a long time to acquire. We are making some staffing shifts to try to bring people up from internal levels to compensate and combat that. So yes, we're aware of that problem. We're working with the different state agencies to try to expedite those processes, but they don't seem to be too willing to move. It is just a lengthy process. I can let you guys talk about that if you want when we get to that. But yeah, no, we're aware of that issue.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to make sure we budgeted for that, for those changes. Thank you.
Comments? All right. 22, party continues to roll. Dave.
All right, stormwater SDCs. Working capital carryover for the SDC fund will be 395,645, which is up 65,722. Interest income is projected at 9,600, and development charges for the year are estimated at 59,482. This is not guaranteed income. If homes don't build, we don't get these revenues. So this is the best guess that our community development office can do based on where projects are and what we think will come in. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So this, once again, best guess scenario. Current year resources for the year at 96,082, giving a total resources of 464,727, which is up 61,800 from previous year. Capital outlay is shown at 200,000, although right at the moment, we don't have any projects identified for that. That's just a placeholder if the opportunity comes up, depending on how the year goes for us. Transfers for the fund would be the administrative portion. If the revenues do come in, would go to the general fund of 2,974, leaving a contingency of 261,753. And really our capital projects are just going back to the master plan. There was a CIP in there, and we're going to do our best to start chiseling away on those projects.
Can you give me like on like a Dutch Canyon 4, they're gonna come in, they're gonna tie into an existing stormwater drain. What does the city, how does that relate with the city? What do they have, are they gonna pay SDC fees into our waste stormwater drainage?
They pay SDCs based on the homes.
Each home will have a fee.
Right. So
Even though they don't
the
use the
conditions, and Lori,
city.
please chime in at any point. But the conditions of the development are set aside different. So if there's needs that development mandates to our system to be able to have that capacity, that's factored into the design of the subdivision, and those costs are incurred to the developer. This is over and above for added capacity for the city as a whole that are assessed to the home when it's built.
So if they're using an existing stormwater drain, is there anything added to the city? I mean, are there fees that they would pay to the city?
In the stormwater fee. So once the home, yeah, so when they build the home, they'll pay the SDCs for that connection side of it. But then we'll start to draw the revenue from the utility fee that pays our operational. So that will increase your operational revenues to help maintain the system. That makes sense?
Yeah, and then your responsibility is the water as it goes into their stormwater drain, where it goes from there. You're protecting others, or you're getting it to drain a specific way. I mean,
Correct. So we maintain the entire infrastructure throughout the city. So once it's into that infrastructure, then yes, we have to take it. But I think where you're going is if there's improvements that need to be made as a caveat of building that, our engineering department has already recognized and conditioned that developer to build that into that, because they can't release stormwater any faster than that land would have released it pre-development. So all of that is already in the design and prepaid as a portion of construction.
Correct, and SDC fees are collected at the time the building permit is issued. So we get that check for all the SDC fees at the time that we issue the permit for the house.
One element I had was just on the estimated 23-24 for outlay on the council approved projects, storm drainage improvements, so on. We just zero on all of it. We just do anything.
Can you be more specific?
Page 96, top table.
Correct.
Okay, just making sure that was
Like I
all
said,
notes was just zero.
this is very specific to capacity projects. So SDCs can only be used for capacity adding projects, none of which were done this year. So that none of that money can be used for any kind of maintenance. It's hands off. It is only for capacity.
Anyone else? Nothing? Tab 23.
Okay, street SDCs, same concept as the stormwater, based on development. Working capital carryover for the fund is 988,646, which is up 141,472. Charges are estimated at 192,054 for the year. Interest at 35,000, giving a total resources of 1,215,700, which is up only 31,000 from the previous. Capital outlay is budgeted at 550. These funds are eligible to be used towards some of these sidewalk projects. So we are using 50% of this and 50% of the other funds if there's capacity added to it. And so that's where this money is going to be allocated to. Transfers for the fund are projected at 9,603. The contingency is 656,097. Balancing the budget at 1,215,700. And as I mentioned, we're using these revenues for sidewalk infill funding and capacity projects. Should we build a new road, which isn't too likely to happen, but could happen, this money would be eligible to be used for that. Council goals being accomplished here, once again, is goal 5.4 to update the transportation SDCs. That is a project that we're working on and will complete this fiscal year. That's all I have. No, I'm kicking that back to this guy.
All right. On that note, now that it got the warm tea up, tab 24, Park SDC Fund.
So Parks SDCs, working capital carryover, $53,853. Total resources of $89,084. This includes $5,000 of interest and $84 of SDC charges, giving it a total of $242,932 for total resources for the year. So for expenditures, there's $100,000 marked for capital outlay for future engineering projects. One of those is including the conceptual design for Grabhorn. And that, questions?
Quick one on the SDC fees again, what can that be used for?
Once
Building
again,
new parks?
SDCs are capacity adding.
So nothing with an existing park unless you add capacity to the existing park.
And that's been a challenge. I think once again, as Lori can attest, because you struggle with what they consider deficiencies. So you have to balance between deficiency and added capacity. New parks, ultimately, yes. Adding a playground to a new one might be a stretch. But building new parks is.
And those are all based on the developments that are kind of in process, guesstimate on how many houses you're thinking and business, that would pay
Correct.
those fees.
So all of the SDCs are based on the same number of homes. We've just taken the proper percentages of that and split it across the funds accordingly.
This is your favorite.
Else? All right. Tab 25, now the most fun.
Yeah, this is,
The pool fund.
yeah, this is the one that, yeah, it was kind of silly, but
Totally.
the pool fund still exists. It still has some money in there, not getting spent because we don't have anything to spend it on. But, it's just gonna sit there and get interest and really no extra revenue. So, and right now it's sitting at, this year, at 95.71. So.
City manager, I have a question for you. Is there a way that we would be able to solve that fund and take those monies and reallocate them something else? Is there a mechanization to do so?
That's a good question. Because I remember this fund 10 years ago. I was
Yeah.
here. And
Okay.
Uh,
There's been significant discussion about it. I don't know, Dave, if you recall sort of where it got left, but I want to say it was going to take maybe a resolution or something to make that change. Do you?
Yeah, Peter and Alex worked.
They
pretty
looked really.
diligently on that. And if we went back through meeting minutes, there is criteria spelled out by Peter Watts as to exactly how we could dissolve that and put those funds back in. Off the top of my head, I don't remember all of those boxes that need to be checked, but we do have that direction.
I do recall some of it. So I think that Peter wanted to get an opinion from the DOJ about how the funds could be used so that we would have that letter as show. Topic came back up again. And I think there was discussion that we could potentially do something with the money that involved water. But again, wanted to get the DOJ's opinion on how those funds could be used.
That's interesting. And that is something we'll research that and see if something can happen.
Every year, I think we have the same conversation structurally, and as long as we have it, people will still ask about it on social media.
Asked if the pool fund exists, I say yes, especially on social media.
All right. Tab 26,
Okay, that's
Employment Insurance Fund.
okay. Unemployment insurance fund. The city is self-insured for unemployment. So we don't pay unemployment taxes to the state. And the employees don't have to pay anything to it. So basically, this fund is currently self-sufficient. We always budget. You know, we're sitting at $96,359 right now. We've had a couple of claims since I've been here. They were not people that we laid off. You know, they were something that was like a secondary layoff that came back to us. So that's where the money, the expenditure has gone. We did not have any this year at all. So, so we currently budget, you know, we keep this in. There is a budget line for every department or that has personnel, you know, to pay towards this fund out of the payroll system. You know, when we do payroll, we haven't needed it, so we haven't budgeted anything or had anything coming over here. You know, if we, you know, we do always budget $50,000, you know, to be available in case we get, you know, a claim. And like I say, since I've been here, we've had that $9,000 that was, you know, for a couple of years, we paid it. And I have not seen anything. And again, we aren't intending to lay anybody off. And so it would have to be somebody that left here and then ended up coming back, you know, to us if we did have any claims. So it's just a fund that's here for that. And at some point, we probably will have to add some more because the fund is decreasing a little bit, just only because we had a couple of claims. But at this point, there's not really a need to do that.
Miller?
Yeah, I just have a context question. So how does this work? Do they still file their claim with the unemployment department and then
Yes.
pass through, or how does that work?
Yeah, so if, and I don't remember the exact situation with the one, because I questioned it when I got here. They would, you know, so somebody, if they got, let's say, if we laid somebody off, then yes, they would come back directly to us. But if somebody maybe goes to work for somebody else and then loses that job, they can still come back because the unemployment department is going to go back, you know, for the 18
Sorry,
months.
Carol, I'm talking specifically about, do they file their claim for unemployment
Oh.
with the state still, or do they file it directly?
Yes, they do. The state, and the state bills us back.
Okay, got it.
I'm sorry, I didn't say it. Sorry. So, yeah, the state would bill us back. And that's where those $9,000 claims have come through.
Comments, questions? All right, tab 27. Utility Water Fund.
That's right. Good evening. The vision for the year for the water department, the focus will be to continue reducing water loss, citywide meter replacement, optimizing water production and distribution system replacement. This complies with council goals to develop and implement a plan to address aging water infrastructure and complete the ARPA-funded infrastructure projects. Fund's objective, explore future water sources, address aging infrastructure, security upgrades, distribution engineering and replacement, distribution improvements, plant optimization, SCADA upgrades, and meter replacement. For the 2020, for the 24-25 budget year, the water fund will begin with a cash carryover, $5,248.20. The fund expects to collect $2,805,370 in service charges, $5,225,000 in intergovernmental revenue, $2,950,000 in debt proceeds, and $30,000 in interest. The total fund resources are $16,258,390. Proposed expenditures in the water fund include $1,176,331 for personnel services, $779,260 for materials and services, and $11,300,000 for capital outlay. The fund budgets $81,439 for debt service, $201,888 for transfers, and projected contingency of $2,719,472. Capital outlay items identified in this year's budget include continue water meter replacement, security upgrades, treatment plant upgrades, distribution system replacement, completion of a basalt well project, construction of the new 3 million gallon reservoir, and the purchase of a new water department supervisor vehicle. I was going to mention that we talked about the deltas, and really the only delta in this is regards to the revenue, spike in revenue and capital outlay, and that's really related to the ARPA monies that are coming in that we plan on spending for the reservoir and the salt well. That any questions?
On the ARPA funds, because we had, I thought part of the meters and SCADA systems were also getting partial ARPA funding. Is that accurate, or?
I don't know if the meters.
The meters were, yeah, we got an allocation from council identified to fund the purchase of the individual water meters through the COVID relief side of the ARPA funding. And so, yeah, that money was exhausted a year ago. We did make that purchase of all those meters. Want to give an update on where you're at?
Yeah, can you give an update? We're probably around, not the exact number, about 1,500 of the cam strips that we have installed. We have about 2,800 of customers in the whole system. So it comes back to the parks kind of personnel thing. It's the juggling act of getting some of these projects done, and it's a lot of seasonal driven. We hopefully anticipate within the next year or two. We're also doing a lead and copper mandate that the state's requiring. So we're trying to kill two birds with one stone by figuring out if there's lead and changing the meters at the same time, so we can do both. But it's really just a juggling act, hoping the next 2 years.
Also, if I'm remembering correctly, a lot of the meters, it was partially we're trying to find the water loss, more water loss prevention elements. With the ones we've installed, are we having like positive results on that at this point?
Yeah, with a combination, it's hard to know specifically which is that and which is other things that we're working on, but we've reduced our water loss from an excess of 30% down to 13 in the last 4 years. So we've made major strides in that end of things. So very pleased with where we're at in that. We also anticipate with the new 3 million gallon reservoir, we're reconfiguring the metering within the facility at the same time, and we think that's going to improve our accuracy. So every year as we work on these refinements, we get better and better and better and a better grasp on it. So yes, it does help. Definitely in revenue. I mean, because we lose with the low accuracy meters, a jerpy sink or leaky toilet, We weren't able to capture that before, and now these are so sensitive that they'll capture that. So that brings revenue to us as much as the water loss identification.
Steve, may I ask you a question about that? So is the meter on at the source part of the system to also talk to the meters at the house to be able to actually calculate the water loss? Obviously, there has to be accurate outgoing numbers to be able to.
Yes, so the new meters every hour ping out, or we can ping them and wake them up. But yes, they provide that data down. So if a customer calls in and says, my water bill is really high this month, there's something going on. Kathleen can literally log in and talk to it via radio from right here at City Hall and instantly have the last forever of data in there and show them what their lowest flow is. We can say, yes, you do have a leak because you're showing a constant flow that never gets below
But the
0.2 gallons
loss-
per hour or whatever.
The loss in between the customer meter and our source, how is that tracked?
So that's tracked in a spreadsheet manner where Daryl, right from the word go of pulling water from his sources, we quantify that, compare that to what leaves plants, and then that is compared against what we read in those meters here at City Hall.
So how accurate are those meters that you're taking your readings from at the source? Because obviously that's gonna.
That's what I'm saying. We're working on that day by day. So like when we reconfigure keys with the new reservoir, we're changing the configuration because there was historically like one meter that was in the system too high and it gets access to air. So we question its accuracy and we're making those refinements as a part of the reservoir project. So we continue to improve on those meters. 2 years ago, we replaced all of the other meters that were within the keys complex just to improve that accuracy. So it's an ever evolving thing. We're getting better and better and better day by day.
I get it. I just had a aha moment when I actually thought about, sorry, I nerd out a little bit sometimes in front of everybody, but, and wonder how things work, but thanks. You got to my question about the accuracy of the meter at the source. And I'll stop.
Yeah, so the way we meter, and we nerd out on it too. The way we meter is we have the triangle. You got your in, you got your out wasted, and you got your out production. Those need to all jive with each other, and that's how we can recognize when there's something going on. Then we can start looking for what's going on because those numbers all need to equal each other.
You've identified leaks in our system between here and the house. Found them.
Yes, and so the new meters also listen. So there's microphones built into the new meters that listen to the pipelines throughout the city. And then we get notifications that tell us when they can hear a leak too. And then Doug can send the crew out and start to trace that down.
I'd like to add, that's the only thing they listen for.
That's helped us with being in trouble leaks, not seeing actually in the street. We can see that's not yet. Said that's how our loss.
And I'm sure you're doing some of the older ones, the more problem areas first, getting the.
Yeah, in
roads
this
safe.
year's budget, we're actually going to be doing Oak and Myrtle water lines over here on those 2 blocks. And then right now we're in design up in Northwest 5th and Wheeler in that area on EJ Smith. Be doing that the following year. So we're going to try to have one pipeline replacement every year moving forward. Once we get the reservoir wells behind us, then we can shift our funds over to distribution projects.
I have one other on the SCADA systems. I know that that's been an ongoing project as well. Like how far along are we on SCADA upgrades and?
There, you want me to take that?
Okay.
We're there.
Yeah,
We have upgraded the systems within both plants. Originally, the equipment was on computers that were no longer supported. That's all behind us. Now what we're looking at is hardware. As some of the hardware within the plant gets outdated, looking at doing upgrades to those, but we don't have anything major right now. All of the parts that we need are still readily available within the market. So we'll have materials on hand for that. But the big concerns that you're talking of are behind us now.
Beautiful. No, and you pre-answered my next question, which was, we have vendors that we trust the sourcing.
We do. In that regard, yes, we do.
Awesome.
The only thing that was ever fearful is lead times with COVID. It could take us quite some time to get pumps and things. We've had some pumps that have a year for both of you guys to try to get, so.
Are we good with all ARPA projects finishing on time? Kind of. And when's this principal and interest expire? 5/11, 5/13, are they?
Hmm.
existing loans that will expire. Page 111. Page 111. Something in that number that tells us when it expires.
2030.
So that 30 might mean when it expires.
That seems logical. There questions, notes, comments? All right, before we move on, it is 8 o'clock. We do have like 5 more and then the urban renewal. I'm of a mind that we could get it done in an hour. People be okay with extending? If so, I'd welcome a motion in that regard.
Chair, I make a motion that we extend our time 8 p.m. Sorry, 9 p.m. max.
I have a motion to extend an hour.
I'll second.
Any conversation? All right, all those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we continue. We should be able to get through all of it by then, I think.
And urban renewal.
Yep.
Better go.
All right, water SDC fund.
The water SDC. For the budget notes for the year is for the 2024-2025 budget year, the water SDC fund begins the year with a projected beginning cash amount of $103,340. Anticipated revenue is $464,280, coming from 3 sources: $4,000 in interest, $360,280 from the water SDCs, and a transfer of $100,000 from the utility water fund to cover debt service payments. Total fund resources are $567,620. Expenses within the fund include debt service in the amount of $280,589. This is to make principal and interest payments on loans GO 3003 maturing in 2027 and SO 3003 maturing in 2035. The fund anticipates a transfer of $17,328 to the general fund for SDC administration and shows capital outlay of $176,976 for the proportionate land use contribution of tax lot 602 to the Keys Reservoir project. Water SDC fund anticipates a contingency of $92,727 for a total in expenditures of $567,620. Questions?
Those numbers don't mean when it expires.
No, that
All right.
turns out. that would be so much easier.
It's good.
Oh, nice. Nothing really. Comments, questions? Tab 29. Utility wastewater.
Good evening, everyone. This year's focus will be the phase 1 upgrades of the treatment plant, which are pretty significant. That include aeration basin, new UV channel, influent and effluent pumping upgrades, a bio dryer on the solids end, and a few other small items. The working capital carryover of $5,456,988, $90,000 in interest, charges for services, $3 million. Our governmental revenue, $5,579,000, and long-term debt proceeds of $13,500,000. Total resources of $27,633,518. Personnel services, $1.3 million. That's for 7.4 FTEs. Materials and services, $727,440. Capital outlay, $17,000,000 $290,000. There's a 2009 loan of 17,642 and interest of 662. Transfers 101,488 and the contingency of 3,341,398. Total expenditures 22,779,827. Of that, material and services numbers. We did a little bit of rearranging with some of the utility power. 230 is pretty consistent with the other funds of where all those go. There's some larger numbers in 230 that are part of a software program called CityWorks that works with GIS. Out of capital, most of that is for the phase 1 project. There's a few things in 300 line item that are normal UV bulbs. It's an annual expense. There's 50,000 emergency pump replacement, digester upgrades, and some new flow meters that are not part of the phase 1 project. Any questions?
On 310 for the infrastructure upgrade, just the 17 million associated, I assume that's part of the upgrade plans?
Yes. 310,
Just jump.
phase 1, the biosolids dryer, ARPA funds, a lot of that. Smith Road upgrade project.
So is the intergovernmental revenue typically ARPA funds?
Yes.
And then you're gonna get a loan for 13.5. You put that in this year's budget, but you may not see all, I mean,
We
do
will
they?
tap into all of that this year.
And same with the expense of 17 million, you're not gonna, so whatever's left, you'll
That's
put on the
total
next year's
project
budget.
estimate. At this point, here in a few weeks, we'll know where the bids come in.
Biosolids dryer will probably be done within the next year.
It'll be done by probably 1st of December. Actually is delivered tomorrow. Smith Road project, we've started receiving parts for pumps and that's moving forward really well.
I just congratulate you because hearing, every time I hear Klaskanai and all the problems they're having, it's so nice to hear come to our meetings, and he's constantly going out for more money, and then environmental issues and problems. And it's just really nice to see ours is operating well, and we're looking for into the future. And
It's been in the works a long time. It's nice to have the support from citywide and keep plugging away at it.
you still looking at governmental funds as possible? Is there grants that come up for different parts of it along the way that we look for?
Anytime something pops up, we'll apply for it for sure.
He finds more money, but I think it's because he's struggling so bad. We're probably not, like you said, so we're not in that struggling situation. Probably don't qualify for certain things.
Yeah, I don't think wastewater funds are as easy to find as water. A little less opportunity there for grants. The one thing I do want to mention, going back to Councilor Santiago's concern about staffing, is there is a position funded in here for operators. Right now, we have one operator that's split 50-50. We're bringing on another full-time FTE, and then we'll split that to where one person will be dedicated to water, one will be dedicated. So in a plan moving forward is, like I said, we're bringing people up through the ranks and adding to that staff so that when people do retire out, you have people coming in on their heels to work their way up through there. So you're not caught blind with nobody there to take that spot. So that's something that we're working on.
And they'll be certified.
Yes.
He's, again, Klaskanai's had to hire someone from North Carolina because their certifications barely qualify with ours, and he's had trouble finding people, and ours, it just seems like it's very difficult to get that
I
level.
think all three cities downriver of us are struggling with that right now. And we are well aware that that is a problem. But right at the moment, I'm feeling pretty good about where we're at with it. So.
There's a lot of us that are also dual certified. So if water department goes down or wastewater, there can be some coverage there as well.
But I know they've been borrowing and helping, you know, I think Rainier maybe has a certified, so he might go down a little bit and help just to get them through. And I think they're letting them get by with that. They know they're trying.
In 2012, we had 3 operators in each department, retirements that year, so we went down to 2 in each department. And part-time, the split person, I think I was 18, 2018. So it's gonna be nice to be staffed again.
Oh, wastewater.
Seriously, really good
Thank you.
stuff. More for me, just one other element, possibly we can learn later. I'd love to get more just understanding of the, like, as we're starting to go into phase 2 planning, how you guys are looking at the projections associated there for the engineering breakouts, all of that. I just don't know enough about the actual process for building out these things. So that opportunity for later, but I'd love to dig into that.
Well, so the phase 2 plan is already somewhat established as far as like,
Components.
yeah, they've
What-
already determined what those next steps need to be, and we already have engineers' estimates for that. So those costs are already on our horizon. It's just a matter of when are we gonna get to it?
Phase 1 is the bigger part of it. Significant item in phase 2 is a new clarifier and lab and office. Aerobic digester, sorry.
All right,
It's glossary.
tab 30, wastewater SDC.
Hey,
Thought we were just talking about wastewater. You get more.
this,
But you get
this
an
fund
idea.
will also help out in phase 1 this year. With a working capital carryover of 822,000, interest 30,000, SDCs 44,335 in the reimbursement part, and extra capacity is 182,129. There is 2 components, which is somewhat new. They are still for growth. Total resources, 1,078,586. Capital outlay, 800,000. Transfers, 11,323. Contingency, 267,263. Total expenditures, 1,078,586. And like I said, 800,000 in capital is going to parts of the projects. On 123, phase 2 is on there if you want to.
There it is. Perfect. Awesome, thank you. Okay. Comments? All right. Then finally, I believe we do have to go through fund transfers just as a.
Yeah,
Tab
page
32.
30, tab 32. 31, we left blank. Last year we still had some history for our debt service fund, which we don't anymore because we don't have any funds that require that. But I'm thinking after hearing the discussion today, maybe I'll use that next year to put like the debts, all the debt service that we have, you know, and so you can have that in the budget book, you know, even though we don't have to necessarily have it there. So we'll go to 32. The funds that we've talked about, the transfers, you know, we've talked, some of them are ISF funds, so it's internal service funds, transfers where people are transferring money to the general fund. This is just a documentation, the water to the wastewater to pay that debt is in there. And this just documents the SDCs that have transfers. It's not really a big deal. It's just to document what the fund transfers are.
Any questions? That is it for the actual line, individual funds. At this point, discussion for budget as a whole, or I would entertain a motion for accepting budget as amended, given the corrections and adjustments associated to previous discussion.
Mr. Chair, do we need to go through some items? We do that.
I was gonna say, if we do not have to, but we can talk through the generalized fund if you'd like. So tab 6, all funds combined. Tab 6. I hit all of my main ones. Yeah, I was gonna say,
I did give Carol one note in here that did say a 4% COLA for last year, and so she'll adjust it to 3% COLA for this year. But other than that, I didn't make any other changes.
Let's make sure I'm sticking notes.
oh, I did have
Oh,
one.
I have got a million sticky notes,
Yeah.
so.
I did have one
Do
question.
you want
on
me to
page
document
40.
those?
Was that right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, they would still have to
Property tax is like normal.
be owned by.
The same.
Yeah.
Oops, I guess these are.
That- It's approved as. It's not-
Budget committee approval.
Exactly. So
Do it.
again, any other questions,
I'll-
comments? Or
We'll make a motion to approve the 24-25 Scappoose City budget as amended.
hearing a motion, do I have a second? Second by Counselor Jacobs, thank you. Any discussion?
And thank you very much. It was a lot of work. Appreciate it, and really nice coming in, and having good things to report, and smiles when I'm hearing a lot of other cities are having a lot of trouble and having to make a lot of cuts. So I really appreciate it. Done a good job.
Carol and I already had an exchange about this earlier, but I'm wondering if we can, I think is it section 5 that has the glossary in it? Definition?
Definitions, yeah.
I think it'd be helpful for people reviewing this if we can have definitions for the things that are on page 38, like, obviously property tax is straightforward, interest, but things like franchise fees, licenses and permits, intergovernmental revenue, charges for services, if we could have a definition for those things ahead of the all funds combined, I think that'd be really helpful for those that may not be familiar with those terms or municipal agency budgets.
I can add that in.
It doesn't have to
Before
be
we-
this year.
Oh, okay, you want to just jump
Just
to
a
next
sug-
year? Yeah.
Just a suggestion, yeah.
I think it's a great, that's why I would want you to please tell me anything like that.
All right, any other comments going through? Hearing none. All those in favor of accepting the budget for 24-25 as amended, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, we are accepting the budget as amended. Thank you all very much for the time. Don't go anywhere though, because I'm closing this meeting out. And now I'm starting the meeting of the Urban Renewal District's budget.